Wilderness, and we're looking through the wilderness, and sometimes life gets like a wilderness, and we can use that phrase metaphorically, but guys, they were doing this literally. They were actually going through a wilderness. They were actually having the things of their life removed from them so that they could witness and experience the Father firsthand without the distractions of bondage. And so this is what we're looking at, And so we get to a certain point to where you would think that with all the miracles that they see every day and the things that happen all the time, that they would say, we know that Yahweh is here, we know that He provides, and whatever He says, we're going to do it. Matter of fact, that was a declaration at the mountain, right? That was a declaration saying, whatever He says, na'aseh v'nishma, right? And so that was the decree, but we fall short in that. It's just the human nature part of us. We fall short of that. And so at times the Father puts us in situations to be reminded of who He is, because we need that. And of the things that He does for us, because we need that. I mean, there are miracles all around us every day, but we fail to see them. And so we can't just look away from the goodness of our God and to say that there's nothing going on because we're not seeing what we think we should see, because there's a lot going on that we may not see. And this is the case when they're going into the land. Now, you would think that when they go into the land that they would say, it doesn't matter what it looks like, it doesn't matter who's there, it's ours. And because that was the promise. That He brought us out of Egypt to bring us to the mountain to equip us to go to this place that He said He prepared for us. And so, does it matter what the current state of it is? No, not really. But, just like us, right? I mean, because that's the thing. We kind of give them a hard time. We kind of beat them up a little bit, but we're no different. Just like us. If we say, okay, this is what we're supposed to do, and this is what the Father has in store for us, but I want a plan. I want the list, and I want the goal and the end result and the steps it is to reach that goal. And next week this is done. A month from now this is done. 6 months from now this is done. I want the plan. And I never get it. Why? Because the Father doesn't always work that way. See, this is where faith comes in. Because we have to walk in what He's given us. And as we take those next steps, then He will reveal what's next. Now, sometimes He'll show us things along the way. And sometimes He'll show us things, down the road, or we'll get it, But I really believe we'll never see the full big picture until we're in it. So this is part of it. The Father wants us to experience His Word and experience these things. Okay? So we need to be careful not to make the same mistake that they did, and to say, okay, God, I know this is your word. I know this was what it says, but it's not quite the way that I think it should look. And so we need to be careful that we do not literally speak against what God has going in our life to help make what He desires for us to come about. I mean, if anyone had a right to complain, Joseph would be one. When he was in the prison, and he was, can you imagine? He had these dreams. He was going to be a king, a ruler, a something, and here he is in prison, falsely accused, with no really showing when he's going to get out. And I could be wrong, but I don't see a record anywhere of where Joseph complained about his situation as he was going through it. Maybe it's there, but I've never seen it. So we can learn some things by that. Okay, so in the midst of what the Father's bringing us through, we need to be careful that we speak words of life, that we speak the words that He wants us to look at, and we need to keep our focus on the road. See, we know the destination, but the problem is we can get so caught up in the destination that we don't see what's right in front of us. So we need to keep our eyes on the road, much like when you're driving. Keep your eyes on the road, because where you are looking, that's where you will go. Right? It's like if you're riding a bike, or if you're doing something, wherever you're looking, that's where you go. That's why in sports they say keep your eye on the ball. So looking, this is the direction you're going. Walk that way, okay? So we get to this parsha, Shelach lcha, which literally means send for yourself. Shelach is the word to send. It's also the word for sow, like S-O-W, to sow. But it's interesting to notice that the Talmidim, Yeshua's Talmidim, were called Sholiach, sent ones. And say we call them, apostles, but they were sholiach, ones that were sent. And so these are the things that we're looking at. And lcha means for you, for yourself. So what's being told here is to send for yourself. God never said, send for me. Think about that for a minute, and we'll cover that a little bit more in just 1 second. So whose idea was it to send spies into the land? Now we can say, when we read this parsha, we say, well, it was God's idea because he said to do it, right? But there's more to the picture. And this is one of the things we like to look at. When we read through scriptures, keep it in context and understand that if there are other places in scripture that can paint the bigger picture and can fill in some of the gaps. Kind of like when you read the Gospels. The 4 Gospels talk about many of the same accounts, but from a different perspective. And so they don't conflict, they're just showing a different part of it. Right? All right, so whose idea was it? It was the people's idea. And I'll show you why in a second. But it was the people's idea. But why would the people say, well, we need to send spies into the land? Because we're going to go in there and we need to send spies. We need to send people in to check it out. Why? What's the point? To what end? Is it going to change what God said because you don't know what's there? And the bottom line is we fear. And we're afraid we don't know. We're afraid of what we haven't experienced. And that fear can keep us from taking the steps that the Father is asking us to take, like surrendering our lives and trusting Him. Okay, that fear can keep us from that, and we have to be careful we don't allow that to happen. All right. So whose idea was it? Well, we read here in Numbers where Yahweh is telling to Moshe. He says, "Send men on your behalf." Shelach lcha. Send men on your behalf. But in Deuteronomy, when Moshe is retelling the story to the next generation, he says, look, Adonai your God has placed the land before you. Go up, take possession, as Adonai the God of your ancestors told you. Don't be afraid, don't be dismayed. You approached me. Okay. The people approached Moses. And they said, let's send men ahead of us to explore the country for us and bring back word concerning the route we should use in going and what the cities we will encounter are like. And the idea seemed good to me. So I took 12 of your men, one from each tribe. So whose idea was it? See, what I believe happened here was the people approached Moses and Moses said, is that okay? And I believe that Yahweh said, well, I would rather you didn't, but if that's what you have to do, fine. And this is one of those things where we need to be careful because sometimes God will give you the desires of your heart even if it's not in your best interest. Because we get so hung up on what we want and the way that we see it that we don't see it any other way. And we have to have it this way. And we can't let go of that. And so when we don't get it that way, we think that God's not working on our behalf. When God is saying, I've got better plans for you if you just let go of that. Right? And so if they would have not sent spies into the land, we could be reading a very different story. Right? So what type of men were these? The people who were chosen, mind you. The people who were chosen was a leader from each tribe. They were leaders among Israel. So what constitutes a leader among Israel? Well, if we go back to Yitro, in the Parsha when Yitro is talking to Moshe and he tells them to men out of Israel and certain types of men and teach them Torah, but he said there's certain type of character, certain type of people that these men are. Okay? And we see later on where it says that, and Moses did as Yitro said. And we do find later in the scriptures where God said, so call and assemble the leaders, the elders, and the people. And so who are these people? Well, these are the ones who were established, right? Because I don't see anywhere where they were revoked, right? So these are the people that were established there. And so who is the leader among Israel? Okay, well, according to this, we see able men from all the people. Able means steadfast, okay? Able men from among the people, men who fear God, Men who are trustworthy and hate a bribe. Good character is what we're looking for. Faith in Yahweh and good character. And these are the leaders that are there, and they will be trained in Torah. See, because there's the thing. You can teach people things, but you can't teach character. That's something that's fashioned in you. And you either have it or you don't. And if you don't have it, you can work on it, but it's not something you can just teach. You know? Today I'm going to tell you what character is and how to have it, you know? Follow these 10 steps. It doesn't work that way. You know? You surrender yourself to the Father and you let Him build His character in you. And that's what we were looking for. Okay? So who were these men? I'll just show you an example here, because what did the Father want to show them in this when they went into the land? What did He want to reveal to them? And what was the underlining urging, if you will? Well, let's take a look at this for a second. And if we look at this, we see, I'm only going to show you these three, just as the idea, to see what's the Father telling us. What mindset do we keep? What is the attitude that we should have as we continue to go forward in this? Well, He set forth Judah, Issachar, and Ephraim. Notice Judah and Ephraim was there with Issachar to help discern and in between these two. But look, what does that mean? Yehuda is praise, Issachar is to bring reward, and Ephraim is much fruit. So praise brings reward and much fruit. They were going to check out the fruit of the land. If they would have went in with praise and a thankful heart, they would bring back the reward of this and be rewarded with the good of the land. And the Father is telling them, even in the order that He sent them, to be mindful of these things. Don't lose heart. Don't take your eyes off of what God said, and report back according to the way that He established. Right? Numbers 13:17. They were instructed to go to the Negev and to the hill country. Specifically, why didn't they just say go check it all out? Why did He specifically say go to the Negev and the hill country? Go to the south and the north. Why would He put it that way? Because we know, looking forward, we see many things in the Scripture that are prophetic. And so, even though the land would be one land, it would be split in the north and south. For some reason, Israel's always been split, huh? But here, it would be split in the north and south. And that's what they wanted to keep in mind, because it's showing us something. This is symbolic of Judah and Israel, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, and Ephraim and Judah. This is symbolic of that. Matter of fact, we have Caleb and Joshua, who was from the tribes of Judah and Ephraim, are the two that stood fast. Isn't it interesting that the two that stood fast and the only two that made it into the land, two. You want to talk about percentages. 2 men out of 603,550 when they came out of Egypt. 2. Including Moses and Aaron. Huh. Isn't it interesting that the two that go in was a representative from Ephraim and a representative from Judah? The southern and the northern. Right? And what they had to keep in mind was that everywhere they went was given to Joshua for Israel. And see, this is something else. They had to walk the land. Their feet had to touch the ground. They had to be there to experience it. You are where you are today because somebody pioneered a way for you. Okay, the advances we have in this country, we have because somebody was pioneering an effort somewhere. Somebody's paying a price for you. And the problem is, if we're not willing to pay the price for the next generation, it's going to just die. We have to pay the price, not just for us, but for those that will follow. Okay? So we have to do that and understand, in order for them to claim this land, they had to walk the entire land. And that's not the first time we've seen stuff like that. Deuteronomy 11:24 says, "Wherever the sole of your foot steps will be yours. Your territory will extend from the desert to the Lebanon, from the river Euphrates to the western sea." Genesis 13. Who could we be talking about in Genesis 13? Abraham. Adonai said to Avram, after Lot had moved away from him, "Look all around you from where you are, to the north, the south, the east, and the west. All the land you see I will give to you and your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants as numerous as the specks of dust on the earth, so that if a person can count the specks of dust on the earth, then your descendants can be counted." From Elon Moreh, the hill where they would stand to be able to say this at the time, You realize you could see the water in every direction? It's amazing. And so when Avram was standing there, he saw all the land. And God told him to do something very specific. He said, get up and walk it. Avram had to get up and walk through the land. I always kind of joke about it. I'm like, what if he only walked 2 miles and said, I'm tired? He walked the land. He paid the price so that it could be given to his descendants. He had to go through there so that it could lay the claim that he was there. And so same thing. Wherever the spies went, that's where Israel would go. And wherever the spies went is where Abraham went before them. You see a trend. So that's it. We have to pay a price for those. So the spies were dispatched, and there was a tester. Now here's something interesting. The word there that we used for spies, they were sent to reconnoiter the land. Literally, the word is tour in Hebrew. Now, what does that sound like to you? If I say they went to tour the land, what does that sound like? It sounds like they went to tour the land. And you know what that word tour means? Pretty similar to what you think it means. It means to check it out, to go find out what's there, to look at it, to look at the trade, look at the commerce, look at the stuff, look at the people, get pictures, bring stuff back, bring souvenirs. Tour it. That's what they were told to do, quite literally. They were told to go out there and to tour. This was a matter of checking on the land itself. This was not a matter of trying to find out if they could do it or not, because they already knew they could do it. So this was a matter of going and to see the land for themselves, okay? So what is the mindset that they're approaching the promise? And here's the thing. Are you going to be faithful to what God has said no matter what it looks like? Are you going to go in and just do because he said this is for you? Or are you going to say, I don't know, I'm not quite sure, let's send spies. Let's try it out first a little bit. Guys, you don't try out a covenant, you walk in it. And that's what the Father's calling us to do. Okay? Furthermore, when they were gone and they were into the land, what did they eat? Guys, the manna was for those in the wilderness. When they went into the land, they ate the fruit of the land. They tasted, literally, think about it this way. They tasted the promise. And 10 of them fell away from it. Taste and see that the Lord is good, right? So taste his promise and see what's there and walk in it and not to turn away from it. So when they came back and they brought a report, we've talked about this before, the matter of that as they were walking through, the people became disheartened as they were walking through, because I'm sure they were asking them questions, right? But Moses said to go and bring this and bring me word back. But they didn't quite do it that way. Matter of fact, they kind of changed the order of their mission when they were bringing their report, which changes the emphasis. Okay? So let's look at this. Moshe asked them to report on the people and then the fruit. But when they brought the report, they reported the fruit and the people. So what difference does it make? Because it was out of order. So the emphasis became on the hurdles rather than the promise. So it was a matter of taste and see that it is good. It is a good land. It is good fruit. It's all good stuff. But that is no longer the emphasis. But the people, oh my goodness. Right? Whereas if you started, well, yeah, the people are something to look at, but it doesn't matter because look at this fruit and the land is good. Now, how different is this? See, they changed the order of their report and it changed the emphasis of the mission. Matthew 24:10 says, many shall be offended and shall betray one another, shall hate one another. Offense came into the hearts of these 10 men because they became disheartened. They went in and they looked at circumstances and they said, we can't do this. And in their own strength, they can't. But Yahweh was leading them. And he was giving it to them and delivering this up for them. And so this was where they had to take in and walk and just to do it. And so it says, so many will be offended and betray one another and hate one another. And so offense leads to betrayal. Now here, these 10 became offended and they betrayed Yahweh and it spread like a cancer to the entire camp. Think about it. 10 men disheartened an entire nation. Tell me, again, that your words don't matter. And again, it's why we say in Bamidbar, in the wilderness, or in the things that we're going through, be careful of Bamedaber. Be careful in the words that we speak or in the things that we say, right? So keeping on here, then false prophets will appear and fool many people, and many people's love will grow cold because of increased distance from Torah. But whoever holds out to the end will be delivered. When we remove ourselves from the word, we will believe falsehood. And we will perceive falsehood as truth. And we will perceive that which is false as evidence of truth. And it was not. Because here's something too. Well, the spies brought back, they said that the people there are mighty and the fruit of the land is good. They all saw the same thing. But there was two very different reports. Right? Perspective alters reality. Not really. Okay? But perspective alters our reality. The way we see things. So it alters the way we see the world around us. Bias can also play a role. If we're biased towards something, we will see things in that light. And if we approach people, situations, or things with preconceived ideas, it will lead to those things that we already preconceive. And this is where we need to be careful. We judge people in situations about things that we don't know them and we don't know what happened, but when we judge them on these things, and then we approach them already set against them. And you can't do that. So we need to be careful that we're seeing according to the Word as the Father desires for us to see, and we're not seeing through our experiences, because the Word of God doesn't change because of our experiences. We need to be careful of that. So, look, how did the spies see themselves? It says there we saw Nephilim, giants, and like the sons of Anak, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them. Now look, here's the thing. We seem to ourselves as grasshoppers, and so we seem to them. Now here's the thing. They can say we felt small and insignificant, and they saw us the same way. Really? They're making assumptions, aren't they? Did they go talk to them and say, hey, what do you think of us? No. They're making assumptions, right? And so again, in walking and doing the things the Father has told us to do, we need to be careful about making assumptions about things, right? How many of you guys have arguments in your head? Like when you're on the way to talk to somebody about something and say, well, I need to talk to this person and I'm going to try to say it this way, but then they're going to say this. And I'm going to say that. And then they're going to say that. And buddy, if they say that, then I'm going to say... And you don't have to go there. And so many times, if you approach it that way, it's going to happen that way because you're already approaching it in that mindset. But so many times, if you approach it differently, it doesn't have to go there. That's why Scripture says, be peaceable with men. And a soft word turns away wrath. Right? So how did those in the land see the people of Israel? See, they made an assumption that, we were like grasshoppers to them, right? We were insignificant, and they were just going to squish us like a bug. But we have a testimony of what they thought of them, because Rahab told them. She said, we heard what your God did for you, and we heard about what happened. And when we saw and heard about all these things, it melted the hearts of the men here. They were scared. So they're saying, we were insignificant, and they were shaking in their boots. Can you imagine? And so again, Joshua is coming on the other side of this saying, again, it didn't matter what it looked like because Yahweh is God, right? And so we thought that we were insignificant and little, but they didn't see us as us. They saw us as people of the Most High. And that's what it looked at. They saw themselves as being insignificant. And Yahweh couldn't do what he wanted to do in their life because of their perception. Much like we read in the Gospels where, and Yeshua could not do many miracles there because the people did not believe. That's Yeshua we're talking about. Guys, you can get to a point where belief or lack of belief can kill your faith. And if you don't have faith, you're not going to get anything. Isn't that what James says? Being double-minded. So how we interpret what we see is based out of our perception, right? We can see things and we all perceive it differently. I can make a statement and every one of you might hear it a little different because we tend to translate what we see or hear through the way we perceive things. Right? Well, they said, I hope I had a good day, but they didn't mean it. Right? So in many cases, we can't see what we should see because we're paying too close attention to something else. And what we see may not be what's actually there. So we need to be careful of these things because sometimes the Father wants us to see something that's right in front of us, but we're distracted. We need to be careful of the distractions. We need to be careful of being mindful of having our eyes set on what the Father is giving us to do, right?
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
But how did you know?
Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away.
Sorry, madam.
It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you?
And action.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
Let that run to the end because it's a pretty good commercial anyway, isn't it? That's what it is. It's a commercial saying, look out for cyclists on the road. But it makes a good point, doesn't it? Sometimes we're distracted so we don't see what's right in front of us. And we need to pay attention to the things that the Father's asking us to pay attention to so that we don't get distracted. Because there's a lot out there to distract you. So when they went into the land, they saw the good of the land, they saw the fruit, they tasted it, it was good, all these great things, but they were distracted because of the circumstances. We need to be careful we don't let our lives do the same way, okay? So when the people came back, what was the response within the camp? Well, when the spies came back, they were terrified. So of course, what do you think the rest of the people are going to see? Terror. And we can't do it. And it's impossible. And what's going to happen now, right? We need to have faith. Especially if Yahweh has already told us this is going to happen. Right? We need to have faith. So now what happens? So now the people are depressed. They lose heart. They cry all night long because they were looking at their circumstances. And interesting though, this was on the 9th of Av. What else happens on the 9th of Av? If you look through Jewish history, the history throughout Israel, the 9th of Av, many terrible things have happened on this day I mean, just something. Both temples were destroyed on this day, on the 9th of Av. It's amazing to see the things that happened. But here they are. They come back, and they're crying out in despair. And here's the problem. Did the promise change? No. The promise never changed. What Yahweh said didn't change. But what did change is they believed slander over promise. They believed the slanderous report over the promise that Yahweh gave. Their offense of being in the wilderness caused them to lose faith. Well, how could you say they were offended at being in the wilderness? Really? Hey, Moses, where's the water? I wish we had quail. Boy, some meat would be good, Moses. Right? No, they weren't offended about anything. Right? But it was this led to them losing faith. Okay? Luke 9:62 says, Yeshua speaking, no one who puts his hand to the plow and keeps looking back is fit to serve in the kingdom of God. We cannot walk forward while looking back all the time. Because you know what would happen? You're going to fall, you're going to trip up, and you're likely to get hurt pretty bad. And you might be running into people along the way. Just watch a kid. 2-year-old, they get excited, they got all their friends in there, and they take off running, and they turn around and look at all their friends, and they're running backwards. What always happens? Yeah, there's a wall or another kid or another person. There's always something there, right? Why? Distracted. They're not paying attention to that. So they wanted to appoint a new leader and go back to Egypt. Okay, well, there's a few problems with that, but here's just a couple, okay? Problem number one, they wanted a leader to lead them in what they wanted to hear. Seems to me that we read something about that in 2 Timothy. Itching ears. People saying that, oh no, we want people that's going to tell us what we want to hear. We want people that's going to tell us nice things. We want people that's going to tell us, make us feel good. They wanted to hear what they wanted to hear, and they wanted leaders to tell them what they wanted to hear. And that's why democracy sometimes just don't work. Problem number two, not just anyone could take them anywhere. The only reason why they were where they were is because Yahweh brought them here. If they would have turned and gone back to Egypt, they would have been met with the people of Egypt, who I guarantee were upset with them, who just lost their firstborn. Yeah. And the other people in the surrounding areas who were looking to try to attack them and try to do this. Yahweh was protecting them. But what if they turn and go back without him? If they would have turned and went back to Egypt, they would not have made it back to Egypt. So again, Moses intercedes. We see many places. But again, Moses intercedes for the people. And he says, please forgive the offense of this people according to the greatness of your grace, just as you have borne with this people from Egypt until now. He's imploring the grace of Yahweh to forgive his people. Guys, I just put this in here just to make sure that we make a note of his grace was extended to his people. Yahweh is gracious and compassionate, and that didn't just happen all of a sudden in Matthew. He's always gracious and compassionate. Amen. So again, Adonai answered, I have forgiven, what? As you have asked. Tell me again, one person praying cannot make a difference. When Abraham was interceding for Sodom and Gomorrah, tell me one person doesn't make a difference. Judgment was delayed because of his intercession. Granted, he couldn't find 10 righteous people, but still. And what happens here? Judgment did not come to the people right there because they were forgiven as Moshe interceded for them, as Moses asked. See? One person praying can make a difference, and your words do matter. So what happens next? So Yahweh did forgive them, but he still disciplined them. We think forgiveness means no discipline. We think love means no discipline. It's actually the opposite. Yahweh disciplines who he loves. And if there is love there, there is discipline there. And even if forgiveness is extended, sometimes there are still consequences to your actions. One example I heard, I don't remember who from, but one example I've heard many times is you can't run up all your credit cards and then say, yeah, but now I'm born again, so all the old things have passed away. They ain't going to buy it. You still going to have to pay for them. Okay? So that's the thing we're looking at. That's the idea. So again, tell them this. As surely as I live, Adonai swears, as surely as who spoke? As you have spoken in my ears, I will do to you. Literally, from your lips to God's ears. The people were crying out in the wilderness, and the people were wailing and moaning and saying, we're going to die in the wilderness, and here we are, oh, we come this far, and we're not going to make it into the land, and I can't believe we're going to die out here, and our kids are going to die, and all these people are around. You ever notice how many times that happened? And it's, again, this is what we're saying. Sometimes God will give you what you want, even if it's not what's best for you. The people that were here in this generation continually kept coming back to this. And this was where their mindset and heart was set. It's like things will be going good, and then all of a sudden, we're going to die. Really? That's why he said, the things that you say, I will do. It seems like it kind of got to the point of saying, okay, fine. If that's what you really want, and if that's what needs to happen to finally get this moving along with, that's what you're going to get. If that's all you keep saying, if that's all you're looking for, okay, fine. Let's do it and get it over with. Wow. And kind of like, oh, you want meat, huh? I'll send you quail. And not just a little bit either. I'm going to send you so much quail, you're going to be sick of it. Right? So the next morning, they had this great revelation. The next morning, after they cried all night and they're doing all this, the next morning they had this great revelation. Oh, wait, we have sinned. After judgment was already set, after their discipline was already given, and saying, okay, look, fine, you guys want to die in the wilderness? You're going to die in the wilderness. I bet that got their attention. Because normally they're like, oh, we're going to die out here. And God is like, look, I've got this land for you. You're going to get there. And then finally he's like, okay, fine, so you're going to die in the wilderness. What? And so now they're like, ooh, wait, we've sinned. We need to fix this. How can we fix this? I know, we'll fix it by sinning again. Really? Is that what they said? Well, kind of, yeah. Because what happened? They go to Moses and they're like, now we're ready to go into the land. Now we'll go. And Moses says, don't do it. God is not with you. You had the chance to do it, and the chance to stand, and the chance to walk in faith, and you did not do it. You lost your opportunity. Do not go do it. And they're like, no, really, we mean it. We think we can do it now. We're going to do it. Let's go. And Moses is warning them, right? What happens? So they arose the next morning, they came to the top of the mountain and said, here we are, and we did sin, but now we'll go up to the place Adonai promised. And Moses said, why are you opposing Adonai? Wow. It says, don't go up because Adonai is not with you. If you do, your enemies will defeat you. But they were, what's that word? Presumptuous. How much of the things that we do in life is presumption? We presume we can do whatever we want and God's got to bless it, right? No, he doesn't. He will bless what he said he will bless, but he cannot bless what he said is cursed. And so if our actions are lining up with blessing, he will bless. But if our actions are lining up with curse, he ain't going to bless that. And so this is what we're looking at. Presumption can get us into a lot of trouble. And so they were presumptuous, and they went on toward the high parts of the hill country, even though the Ark of the Covenant of Adonai and Moshe stayed in the camp. And so the Amalekim and the Canaanim living in the hill country descended, they struck them down and beat them back all the way to Hormah. So again, you may be doing what you think Yahweh wants, but if rebellion is present, there will still be consequences for it. Much like we said, you can do the right thing the wrong way. You can do the right thing with the wrong heart, and it can actually be damaging to people. So after rebellion is addressed, obedience and drawing near is revisited there, because the emphasis here is anyone who desires to draw near can. God is reassuring the people. Okay, he's saying that they're going to die in the wilderness, but he's making sure that it's understood. Anyone who desires to come near to him can. They have to be willing to do so, though. They have to be willing to lay their life down to do that. Anyone who wants to draw near can do so. And we find this in Numbers 15. If a foreigner stays with you, or whoever may be with you through all your generations, and he wants to bring an offering made by fire as a fragrant aroma to Adonai. Again, this is a matter of covenant. It's a matter of, if he wants to bring offerings, then that means he wants to serve Yahweh. Okay? If he wants to bring offerings to him, he says he is to do different than you because he's a Gentile. No. It doesn't say that, does it? He says he is to do the same as you. Because in this community, what community? The Commonwealth of Israel. The same law will be for you as the foreigner living with you. And this is a permanent regulation. Right? Numbers 15:16 says, the same Torah and standard of judgment will apply to both you and the foreigner living with you. Torah is not for this person, but not that person. Torah is a decree of the Father's plan in the earth, period. Those lining up in covenant with him will line up with his word. And that's it. So Yahweh reassures them that they will go into the land. When they do, these offerings will be brought. And this is another way they can feel sure within themselves they will go into the land. Because why would they be given commands of, so when you go into the land, these are the offerings, the type of offerings to be brought, and these are the things that are done? Why would that matter if they're not going in? I mean, it's kind of like, fine, you guys are going to die. I'll see the next generation when they're done, and never be there ever again until the next generation. That's not what happened. So he's telling them, and this is what happened. He's reassuring them they will go in. They will get the promise, okay? And then we have the command of tzitzit. Now, why is that here? Because we have, so the spies go into the land, they're disheartened, they lose faith, and they're going to be dying in the wilderness. Then we have offerings, and then we have Torah that's there, and now we have tzitzit. How are these connected? They're very connected. Okay? So how is that? Well, first off, what is tzitzit? Okay, they're translated as fringes, tassels, tzitzit, on the corner of your garments. Okay? Some translations say four corners of your garment. Literally in the scripture, it just says on the corner, or on the edge, or extremity, or wing of your garment. Okay? And there's no specific instruction on how we're told how to tie them. What we're really told is that it should have a blue thread. Okay? So we look at this, Numbers 15:38. Say to the people of Israel, make tassels on the corners, the word is kanaf, on the corners of your garments, and put a blue cord on each tassel. You are to do this for all time to come. The tassels will serve as reminders, and each time you see them, you will remember all my commands and obey them. Then you will not turn away from me and follow your own wishes and desires. Now, again, kanaf is the wings, border, edge, extremity, and this is why the lady with the issue of blood sought to touch Yeshua on the hem of his garment, because according to Malachi, there's healing in his wings, and it wasn't like wings. It was like on the edges or extremities of his garment, and what was on the edges or extremities of his garment was the tzitzit, and which represents the heart of the Father. Keep his word. Because if we keep his word, we'll walk in the blessing and the life that he set out for us. Keep his word is the thing that was given. You know, remember the big thing a while back, you know, the WWJD bracelets? Guys, God had it first. He called it tzitzit. They were to remind you in every situation of what the Father desires for you to do. Because sometimes we have thoughts that are contrary to what he would want us to do. And so sometimes we need to stop and to say, should I be doing this or should I be doing that? Or what should I be doing? I've got a situation, and what are my options? You know? And so we need to do that. But why would they be reminded about this? Because this is connected to the incident of the spies. Quite literally. Okay, so here we go. Seek not after your own heart and your own eyes after which you go whoring. Seek not after your own heart. We read in Jeremiah, it says the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Again, follow your heart? Really? Because your heart is emotional, and it'll lead you anywhere. wherever feels it needs to be at the time. But God will sometimes put you in situations where you don't feel like being there. It's not about what you feel. It's about what you know. Okay? Follow His word, period. And then, so don't go following your own eyes, after which you go whoring. 1 John 2:16. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not the Father, but is of the world. And these things relate to our actions here on earth that are not godly. And why do we have the seed seat? To remind us to not do these things and to not pursue these things. Okay? Verse 40 says, the tassels will remind you, this is pretty clear, this is pretty plain. The tassels are there to remind you to keep all my commands, and that you belong, what's the word? Completely to me. They are there to remind us we do not belong to ourselves. We are not our own. We are bought with a price. We belong to Him. Therefore, we will walk in His ways. Romans says, so you who were used to be slaves to sin, you are no longer slaves to sin, but you are now slaves to righteousness. Huh? Yeah, because we have been redeemed, which means we belong to Him. So remember when they said the spies were sent to, spy out the land? What was the word there again? Tour. Tour. So when we read in Numbers 13:2, it says, send men out to spy the land of Canaan. So again, we read in the Hebrew, Shelach, lcha, anashim, people. Now look here, this is the word. Veyaturo. It's the word tour, but this is the tense of it. Veyaturo, et Eretz Canaan. So again, this is the word tour that is given here. Now, what we find here in Numbers 15:39, it says, do not follow after your own heart or in your own eyes. In the Hebrew, we read velo taturo. What's this word? Tour. It's the same word. So what he's saying is that when we're related here, do not go searching out for all these things. Keep your eyes and your heart set on the Word, not on the circumstances. Because that's what they did with the spies. And so here we're reminded, don't go just off of what you see. Don't go just off of what you hear. Go off of what you know to be true and established, and that is only His Word. Because when we follow Him wholeheartedly, sometimes it'll contradict the things that we see and hear. Right? So we need to be wholehearted towards the Father. What does it mean to be wholehearted towards Him? It means we serve Him with everything we are, everything we have. Jeremiah 29:13 says, if you look for me wholeheartedly, you, what? Will find me. So we will serve Him with all our heart, but we know that when we serve Him with all our heart, there is something that He said He will do. I wonder what that is. It's pretty amazing. Look at that. Jeremiah 32:37. I will certainly bring my people back again from all the countries where I will scatter them in my fury. I will bring them back to this very city and let them live in peace and safety. Isn't it interesting that we say that the seed will remind you to be wholehearted towards the Lord your God? And here, when we find talking about being wholehearted, Jeremiah, it relates to being scattered because of idolatry. It's all connected. It says that they will be scattered, but they will be brought back. So again, I will bring them back to this very city and let them live in peace and safety. They will be my people. I will be their God. And I will give them one heart and one purpose to worship me forever, for their own good and for the good of all their descendants. Now look at this. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them, and I will never stop doing good for them. I will put a desire in their heart to worship me, and they will never leave me. I will find joy doing good for them, and will faithfully and wholeheartedly replant them in this land. It is worth noting that there is only one thing in Scripture that Yahweh Himself said He is going to do with all of His heart. And that is to bring the people back from where they've been scattered and bring them back to the land and to plant them in it. But yet, this is the biggest, longest, largest, foremost prophecy in all the Tanakh. And many people today don't even realize what's there. And the significance of it in the times that we're in. Why do we talk about it? Because of this right here. It is what's on the Father's heart. He said, if he said this is what he's going to do wholeheartedly, what should we be doing about it? Because if our hearts are connected with his, then we should do the things that he says he desires. Right?